Okay, here we go, our ladies classic layers. So I'll section off the hair, divide the side from the top at the parietal area, and I'll begin on the right side. And as I cut the right side, I'll cut on the outside of my fingers. Now, when you're cutting on the outside of your fingers, you have to be especially aware as to your over direction. One benefit of cutting on the outside of your fingers and standing at the occipital bone area is that you have a better point of view of how well you're combing the hair straight out. But the downside to that is your elevation may be a bit off. So what I recommend is to use that mirror. So as you visually confirm your sections are being combed out, then you can glance in the ear and just make sure your elevation is straight out. You're not elevating too high or too low. Run view for the side area, I'll be combing every section straight out and I'll be cutting round classic layers. Now as I comb the hair, I like to first quickly place the base of my comb on the base of that section, and then my comb will tell me exactly where I need to comb straight out from. I just have to make sure that the angle of my comb doesn't deviate. And I also can use the teeth of my comb to make sure I'm combing the hair super clean and super straight from roots to ends. So again, cutting in the same manner, combing the hair straight out. And here we're cutting layers through the sides. Make sure your over direction, elevation, moisture, tension is consistent. Me personally, I prefer approaching technical haircuts, the wet portion, cutting on the inside of my fingers every chance that I get, because I feel for myself, my work is a lot more accurate, but cutting on the outside and inside of the fingers can be done. So I'll approach, just for fun, for the right portion, I'll cut on the outside of my fingers. On the left side, I'll cut on the inside. So again, still working around layers. Combing the hair straight out from roots to ends. Pay very close attention to your elevation and your over direction. You can always comb the hair to natural fall and make visual assessments. If there's something off, you might see that your shape, within your shape when you come into natural fall, something will pop out or kick forward or kick backwards. So that's a strong indicator that you need to go back and refine your shape just a bit more. Okay, so here we begin to round. So as we round this shape, I'm just again pulling the hair straight out. I don't want to build up a corner here. Okay, and as you reach the hairline, just be aware for any awkward cowlicks or growth directions, because there you may have to adapt your tension. If you see an intense cowlick, lessen up on the tension and allow for that additional movement, because when hair swirls around, that indicates when you pull it out straight, you'll have a longer length. So again, working round layers through the back, pay attention to the occipital bone area. Work in small, manageable sections. And this section again is larger than my finger, so of course I'll have to go and I'll break that section down in probably 2 or 3 pieces. One at the top from crown to occipital bone, and the second area, the occipital bone, and the third area would be from the occipital bone to the nape. And if you find that your over direction and elevation is a bit off when you're cutting on the outside of your fingers, you can always flip your chair around like 180 degrees so the back of the head is facing your mirror, and then you can use your mirror to visually cross-check. Okay, so now through the left side of the haircut, I'll be cutting it on the inside of my fingers. This is, again, my favorite way to cut hair. That's me personally. It's not, I don't represent every single hairdresser on planet Earth. I just feel that I have a greater amount of control. Okay, so the next section again, I'm cutting round layers, so I'm combing the hair straight out. I match my comb, I place it right on the section, and I pull the hair straight out watching my over direction, my elevation, and also making sure that I'm combing the hair super clean from roots to ends. And as I'm working the left side area, I'm standing directly in front of what I'm cutting. So again, next section, combing the hair straight out. I know this process, I already ran it through my head, so I know where my body position should be, each section where I should be standing. And I personally like cutting with super clean lines. Occasionally I'll go in and texture with my technical portion, but 90% of the time I still prefer the clean line. I think it's much more harder to cut clean. It's easier to cut with texture. And when I'm cutting with texture, it's when I cross check and what have you, my guideline gets a bit messy. So if I need to break up my shape, I'll do it after the blow dry. It varies. Say I could do this exact same haircut, and if I want to see tons and tons of texture, then I'll go in and I'll point cut the entire shape. So you adapt your technique to support the end result that you wish to create. So now at the round of the head, I'm pulling the hair straight out, no over direction. I'm not building up a corner here. Again, remember, we're cutting ladies classic layers, so it's a round layered shape. So stand in front of what you're cutting, comb the hair to your center of balance. Okay, and keep in mind when we're cutting very thick hair, you have to pay super close attention to the size of your sections and the cleanliness of your stroke. If your stroke is really messy on thick hair, your end result will fall very bulky and it will take away from your movement. So always, if you find it challenging to work with thick hair, start using smaller sections. And as you get a better understanding and a better flow, because like the way you come out the section, it varies slightly from, say, if I was cutting the same technique on fine hair. Okay, so still cutting round. And here I flip back to the outside of my fingers. Watch your elevation and over direction. And make sure you can always see a super beyond super clean guideline. If your guideline is a bit off, your elevation may be too high or too low, so you can like shift around that section until you see a clean guideline, or you can like jiggle around your fingers. That helps sometimes. If that doesn't work, go back and take less of a section and more of a guideline. And there's a lot of different ways to approach this haircut. Like I could be cutting, say my guideline, I could bring this technique and I can cut it, say like a 3-inch length, same technique. Or I could do the exact same technique and pull the hair out like say 1.5 feet, 2 feet. The technique remains the same, just the length. Just by changing the length, the overall effect will change dramatically. So now at the crown area, pay attention for any jumpy cowlicks. If you find jumpy cowlicks, then just ease off on the tension. Okay, so now I'm approaching the top portion of the haircut. So I'll section off, because the hair naturally parts from left to right, and I'll comb the hair straight out. And here I have a guideline from the side and the back, so I have two guidelines. And for the left portion of this haircut, I'll be over directing the hair slightly to the left because that's the way that's where she parts her hair. So I have to build in additional length so when the hair falls, it falls symmetrically balanced. So again, always working with clean, manageable sections. Make sure that you comb the hair super clean from roots to ends. Line up your comb to the angle you anticipate to cut. And then once you get near your guideline, then I'll start using my fingers to apply tension just to hold the hair in place. But when I actually comb the hair and stroke it out, 80% of the work is with my comb. The last 20%, I'll implement my fingers and then I open scissors and start taking hair down. Okay, and as I progress forward, I start to over direct the hair slightly more to the left. Again, that's because her parting goes from left to right. Okay, and then also be aware of the density. A lot of times as we work towards a hairline, our density changes. So if you find a dramatic change in the density, just ease up on your tension. So by easing up on your tension, it will allow for any jumpiness in the hairline and allow you to control that area where the hair is a bit finer or the density is a little bit off and lacking. Okay, so here I approach the left side of the haircut. I'll use the exact same technique. The only variation is that through the left side of the top, I won't be over directing the hair. I'll just be combing the hair straight out. So actually what I'm creating technically is through the left side, my layers, if we measure them, are a bit shorter than the opposite side. The opposite side, again, I have to build up slightly more length just to take into consideration once the hair hits natural fall, if the top were 100% symmetrical, one side would be shorter, one side would be longer. So you have to remember, we're cutting three-dimensional on a three-dimensional shape. So three-dimensional is actually the ladies' classic layers, that were the technique, and the three-dimensional shape that we're cutting on, since we're elevating the hair above 0 degrees, is the head shape. And every head shape is different. So I focus on the shape that I'm cutting, and if you make these slight adjustments, I really don't have to take the head shape into consideration too much. So as I go in for the blow dry, I'll start off flat wrapping, and I'll evolve to leafing and then beveling. And I'll use enough tension to get the hair nice and smooth, and I'll push the hair around in tons and tons of different directions to encourage a lot of movement. Just working the dryer, I always have the nozzle follow the base of my paddle brush. And once the hair is dry, I'll just go back, cross-check, and refine my shape here. I'll texturize it a bit, just to give my end finish a little bit more softness, because the hair falls really tight to the scalp. So just by breaking up this line a bit, everything will fall a little bit softer. And again, as I texture, I have to take into consideration the density. So I want to texture consistent density. So maybe in one section, say the center area is thicker, the ends are finer. The finer inner areas I may texture a little bit, or I won't texture at all, and I'll focus on the heavier portion. I just want symmetry and balance with the density as I texture the hair. Just continue refining your shape until it visually fits your original mind map, your original intention, and also so that texturized till you can comfortably comb the hair from roots to the ends. And that's a really good indicator that your shape is on. Okay, well, there we have it, our ladies' classic layer. Enjoy.